A strange incident occurred in my granddaughter's school in the year 2020. Marcus Lamb passed away prematurely. Was Joni Lamb involved in any way? A terrifying question is being whispered among those close to the Lamb family. Daystar Television Network was headed by the dynamic Marcus. Could it be that his untimely demise was more than a tragic accident? What if it triggered a domino effect that made us doubt our faith in truth, love, and trustworthiness? Now we're in Texas, where the contentious head of a Christian television station, Marcus Lamb, has passed away following a battle with the COVID-19 virus. Conservative televangelist Daystar gained notoriety last year for airing pro-lockdown and anti-vaccine groups for several hours. In November of 2021, Marcus Lamb passed away suddenly. Both his faith and his leadership skills were well-known traits of his. His death was caused by complications related to COVID-19. However, among Christians, there were whispers that the exact moment of his death was not as certain as first appeared. It's plausible that something far worse started because of this important person's death. Something nobody saw coming, or were these accounts simply the product of those bereaved attempting to make sense of a tragedy they didn't comprehend? On Marcus's final night in the hospital, I was his primary caregiver. She told me that it was around 3 in the morning and that she had stood in the dark staring at me. I texted my mom and said, "I can't do this anymore. I told God, you feel the pain of my heart. Me and my child are ruining this family. I know, my God, you're watching out for me. You'll get me out of here." That was my last night. She looked at me and said, "Look what you have done to this family." He dies the following day. The ripple effect that Marcus's untimely demise would cause in his loved ones, congregation, and the wider community was obvious from the get-go. But a peculiar pattern emerged as the months passed. His 30-year wife, Joni, began making decisions that exacerbated suspicion and caused a lot of problems. What about the counselor, Doug Weiss, who, in the aftermath of Marcus's death, appeared to wield an unsettling amount of control over her life? It appeared like they were getting along well, but could there be hidden forces altering the plot? I stopped by Daystar's cafe in the afternoon to pick up a snack. I was in the green room with my child, and something was going on. I could sense her fear, so we ceased taking her there. I needed to find a solution fast because she was at home with her babysitter. I didn't anticipate anyone else being there when I walked in because it was the middle of the afternoon. Having to bring her along was a horrible necessity. Pete and his wife come walking in just as I'm going to get that food box. My child's fear was so great that she collapsed under the table in a heap. As soon as I saw her lifeless body, I snatched her up and dashed for the vehicle. Sharing the news with other relatives, even those I trusted, was terrifying for me. "I'm not bringing my child here," I informed him. The situation became increasingly murky as time passed. At first, it was just a straightforward tale of healing from loss, but it soon became complicated and terrifying. Arrival of divorce papers, claims, and rifts within the family only served to heighten the suspicions. How was that so swiftly? 2 months following Marcus's passing, Doug divorced his wife of more than 30 years. Then why did it? Even though many people were questioning the timing and authenticity of her relationship with Doug, why did Joni want to support it so much? The speed with which things began to fit together is deeply unsettling. This seems like a love story on the surface, but there must have been darker forces at work. They showed me paperwork, emails, and text messages. "All right, I'm going to have another conversation with Jonathan and Susie this morning to get their side of the story," I said, but I would not budge from my decision. I saw everything they showed me. Each side was heard. There was a spiritual quality to my conversations with Jonathan and Susie. I knew I felt things. Today you will be able to see the interview I did with Daystar. It is open for anyone to dissect, study, critique, or otherwise comment on. I believe it is just and fair to share the interview. Whatever one thinks about it, anyone is free to feel. Following that, I will create my last film in which I discuss the information they provided. The actions of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss were scrutinized more closely in the aftermath of Marcus Lamb's death. At first look, Joni's decisions appeared to be those of a bereaved widow seeking solace and restoration. However, her friendship with Doug Weiss gained attention due to its rapid growth. It appeared like Doug, a counselor who has assisted individuals in overcoming addiction and reuniting with their partners, developed an unhealthy obsession with Joni. Doug filed for a divorce from his wife of over 30 years on January 22, 2 months after Marcus passed away. It was around that time that speculation regarding his relationship with Joni began to circulate. Because of how things unfolded, the picture almost looked too simple. It was clear that Doug and Joni were developing a romantic relationship, but the rapidity with which it was happening caused some concern. Why did a relationship that began as a solace after a loved one's death evolve so rapidly? Also, why was Joni so quick to shield her relationship with Doug, which was still young and somewhat contentious, from criticism after she had recently lost her husband? Since marrying Dr. Doug Weiss, a blessing to Daystar, my family, and myself, Jonathan's resentment over losing out on things has only grown. This situation saddens me greatly because I am a mother and a grandmother. My heart breaks because I cherish my family, my children, grandchildren, and the work we have accomplished together over the years. I was hoping we could have resolved our issues discreetly, except that Jonathan has now compelled me to speak up. My son Jonathan and his wife are attacking the gospel message that we have spent our whole lives sharing, and it breaks my heart. I want you to know that everything that has been said about my late husband and me is completely untrue. For some, this was clearly about more than simply recovery. Much of the plot was shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. Questions of trust were at the heart of the allegations surrounding Doug and Joni's relationship, which extended beyond the timing of their start dating. Were their words truly spoken in an act of faith? Or was there a more sinister and premeditated plot? Even Joni's own family betrayed her, making an already difficult situation much worse. Her public criticism of her actions by her children, Jonathan and Susie Lamb, only served to heighten the scandal. Some others shared their disapproval of Joni's decisions as well. The general Christian community, which had previously held her and Marcus in high esteem as religious leaders, was now torn between admiration and suspicion. How could someone whose love for her family and husband was once so openly expressed suddenly find love with another man? The sense of a larger plot thickened as these connections and decisions came together. For what reason did Marcus meet his demise? Did anything else go on behind the scenes? Was a new, more egocentric chapter being launched from the tragic conclusion of an earlier one? A disturbing and scandalous picture emerged from the marriage's dynamics, the accusations of betrayal, and the abrupt shifts in family allegiance. The accusations of betrayal and the rapid shifts in family allegiance created an image that was scandalous, to put it mildly. That is correct. But I'd also like to mention that due to the excruciating pain of what we've gone through, it's obvious that words will never do justice to the past few years. Coming from, I'd rather not describe it, but it was excruciatingly painful. Sure, it's liberating to not be beholden to a select few and to not have your repeated demands for fair treatment met with indifference and rejection, as if you were hitting a wall. Joy and tranquility reign. I felt like justice was done when the story came out and people's reactions validated our parents' feelings. We were really in the mood to shoot a short film. At this time, we would prefer not to divulge all of our details. In the midst of the story, Jonathan and I snatched the camera and settled down to field some questions. The schedule showing when Marcus Lamb died and what Jan did afterwards became more and more difficult to ignore. Daystar, the Lamb family's church network, was not immune to the growing tide of accusations and doubts. Millions of people listened to Marcus Lamb, who was a major figure in Christian media. His sudden death from complications related to COVID-19 shocked and saddened Christians. It wasn't only melancholy that people felt after his death, they also heard words that made them uneasy. The allegations that Marcus's death was orchestrated appeared to be gaining traction, despite the fact that they remained merely theories. After decades of marriage, Joni Lamb was left a widow. In addition to her personal grief, she had the enormous responsibility of leading Daystar in his absence. She publicly mourned her partner's death for months, but behind closed doors, everything appeared to be moving at a breakneck pace. Joni felt a growing attraction to Doug Weiss, a therapist who specialized in assisting clients in overcoming sexual addiction and marital issues. It appeared at first that they were merely friends, sharing a common experience of hardship. However, it soon became apparent that their relationship extended beyond mere companionship. A deeper connection had developed between them prior to the burial of Marcus's body, as revealed by the chronology. Podcasts featuring insightful conversations about weighty topics are in the works. After receiving our story, the reporters are free to run with it any way they see fit. We inform them the truth and they will investigate. We do not have any other choice. Months pass by like that. Devotion is time-consuming. It wasn't just today that this began, it has persisted for some time. I am impressed by how thoroughly they researched the topic. My original motivation for suggesting we make this film was a lack of knowledge about how successful it would be. Something came to Jonathan's mind. I must admit, I didn't. Because of all the times they've loved us and seen us on TV, our adoring fans would like us to take a few minutes to answer their questions. Not doing it seemed cruel to me. Why didn't we contact the authorities? These are the 4 most common inquiries we've received over the past few days. Why was there a delay in communication? Second, I have no idea why I let this guy slip away. Finally, rather than climbing up alone, Susie shouted for me to do it. In the 4th place, we should be going public. The fact that this connection appeared to develop as Doug was coping with his own issues was the worst part. At the same time that Joni was grieving Marcus's death, Doug was divorcing his own wife. Almost identical times were observed. 2 months after Marcus passed away in January of 2022, Doug requested, while Doug was still in the midst of a difficult divorce, many people noticed that he was already making plans to be with Joni, which seemed suspicious. Given that their bond developed at a considerably faster and more complicated rate, how could their relationship be viewed as good and pure? There was already a lot of uncertainty surrounding the assertions of an emotional bond between Joni and Doug before leaked audio tapes surfaced online. Joni vehemently denied in these recordings that she and Doug had any improper talks prior to their marriage. She insisted that her connection with Doug was founded on faith, prayer, and a mutual desire to recover. She defended herself by saying the accusations were baseless and that there had been no animosity between them prior to their marriage. In fact, the leaked tape only served to bolster the theories rather than dispel them. The question of why we did not contact the authorities needs to be dissected first. Honestly, we did contact the authorities twice. The second question is, why did you wait so long to talk? My response would be, let's go over the timeline. I understand that stories often have back and forth because they are so complicated, but I think it would be best to keep things simple. This will be a short film, so we will do a very condensed version. It will all eventually come out. Returning to the beginning will allow you to see the notes regarding the most crucial parts. My sister first saw my daughter's unusual behavior, stiffening up in response to approaching strangers, in the early spring or summer of 2020. This started to bother me as well, but I wasn't really serious about it. That was just a natural part of growing up, in my opinion. Next, while traveling in the summer, let's watch our language a bit more closely. It is imperative that we be. While on vacation, this man claims that our daughter caught a glimpse of him undressed in a restroom. Equally novel to me at the moment is this. Choosing a use for it was a challenge. I went to see how my child was doing after assuring him it was fine. When I asked her how she was doing, I simply said, "Okay." I can't remember if I told you or not that day. The fact that the Lamb family was dealing with both financial and emotional issues made matters more murky. The loss of Marcus was difficult enough for Jonathan and Susie Lamb, who were married to Joni Lamb, but they also had to cope with disturbing accusations that their young daughter had been abused. According to reports, Pete, a beloved member of the Daystar Church, had gotten away with some wrongdoing and had his attempts to discuss these accusations blocked. Rather than taking immediate action to safeguard the child, the leaders of the Lamb family appeared to conceal the truth in an effort to portray everyone as innocent. Some individuals, including former police officers, claimed that the online polygraph tests were inaccurate and failed to provide any conclusive results. The Lamb's refusal to cooperate with the demands for an impartial investigation only served to fuel suspicions of a cover-up. Well, that was back then. Months have passed, and she's starting to resemble a little, hey, she's acting differently now. November 2020 finds her telling me the horrific details of her rape. I had never been surprised like that before. How I felt then is beyond my ability to put into words. The one I confided in the most, the one I trusted the most, was the one I went to. Quite apart from that, I was wondering why you even went there. Jonathan had yet to return from work, and the clock read 5:30 p.m. It was time for me to call it a day. The woman advised me not to contact the authorities because I had complete faith in her. We will instead meet with the educators. This woman is my mom. My daughter informed me of this while we were talking that day. For sure, it's still not easy. It remains challenging. Speaking privately with a reporter is easy, but speaking in front of a large group of people is very painful. These people are loved by us. We maintain a neutral stance toward these individuals. Please don't make me cry. I'm trying my best not to. The involvement of Doug Weiss in this incident was even stranger. Someone whose job it was to be truthful and who specialized in assisting those going through personal problems appeared to have gotten himself entangled in the Lamb family's tangled web of loss, family strife, and dubious choices, where his knowledge and perhaps even his own interests were heavily involved. Many questioned Doug's motives, wondering if he was utilizing his position of power to obtain what he wanted from Joni, or if he was genuinely there to assist her in healing after her husband's death. Things escalated because Joan backed Doug. She described him as an incredibly courageous individual who had been her rock during a dark period. In her passionate speech, she extolled Doug's love for his family and the unique way he loved her. She informed him that Doug's previous marriage had been a disaster and that he had persistently wished for a miracle despite the difficulties. Many felt that Doug and Joan's rapid transition from mourning to dating ran counter to the natural progression of grief. They quickly progressed from being mutually supportive to becoming engaged in a matter of months. There was a lot of speculation about how long their relationship had been going on and whether or not it had begun after Marcus's death. I consequently questioned my child. Absolutely not. I've never attempted anything like this. To be honest, I'm confused about leading questions. First, I mistook it for a school. Daystar seemed like a school to me because we took her there even though she went to a homeschool. I inquired, "Is it at school?" from her. Nodding was all she could muster out of fear. The reason I now know about that behavior is because experts have informed me about it, and now it all makes sense. I understand now. She said, "A boy." I then inquired, "Was it a girl or a boy?" I inquired, "What is your height?" She said, "Taller than Daddy." I was scared because a 5-year-old doesn't know how to talk to men. Now let's get moving. After that, we'll go to school. The teachers and that person I trusted said there is no male here. It was almost like, okay, we've done our part, case closed. I told Jonathan, I don't want to talk into this. I would prefer not to speak with your relatives. In the midst of this storm, the leadership at Daystar of the Lamb family became even less united. We filed our report after calling the police. It was a brief investigation because there wasn't much information. Joni defended her actions by claiming that she was led by God, but some, including relatives, saw them as a betrayal of Marcus's lineage. As they struggled to rein in Daystar, the personal and professional harm inflicted upon the Lamb family became more apparent. As more details emerged, like the growing bond between Joni and Doug, the unsettling allegations against Pete, and the unwillingness to cooperate with an outside investigation, the question persisted. Was this genuinely a tale of love and healing, or was something more sinister afoot? It appeared as though the truth remained to be discovered. Could the Lamb family confront the weight of their grief, or would they continue to hide behind their public persona and allow the rumors to circulate?